You know what's wild? There's this lady in my neighborhood, let's call her Karen, who literally called 911 on my barbecue. Yeah, you heard that right. She called the cops on me for grilling ribs. The officers came, laughing, like, not again, Mrs. Hayes. But that was just the start. Exactly 9 minutes after they left, something happened at my cabin that blew the lid off a $1.2 million scam against 20 families. This is the story of the craziest HOA takedown in history, and it all began with some ribs. So where are you watching from? Drop a comment, because Karen had no clue what those 9 minutes would cost her. Let me back up a sec. It was a sunny Sunday, exactly 1 year after I moved into my grandfather's old lake cabin. After a brutal divorce, 15 years of marriage, drained savings, and my ex-wife keeping the house we built, I finally felt some peace by the lake, cooking my grandfather's famous barbecue ribs. The cabin wasn't much: weathered wood, sagging porch, a roof past its prime, but to me, it was paradise. Grandpa was a land surveyor, worked this land for 50 years, built this cabin with his own hands back in '52. The walls were lined with his old photos, him standing proud with his survey tools, the lake through the decades, and one photo of him shaking hands with a man in front of the cabin. I'd spent the morning prepping ribs just like Grandpa taught me: membrane off the back, secret most people miss, then a dry rub with brown sugar, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, cayenne, and Grandpa's secret ingredient I swore never to reveal. Marinated overnight, now ready to hit the grill. The smell of hickory chips filled the air as I put the ribs down. This was my meditation, my therapy, my way of connecting with the grandpa who raised me after my parents died when I was 10. While the ribs sizzled, I caught movement in the bushes about 50 yards out. Thought it was a deer. We get plenty. But then I saw binoculars glinting. Someone was watching me. I kept tending the ribs but kept an eye on the bushes. That's when Vivian Hayes stepped out, mid-50s, safari vest stuffed with notebooks and measuring devices, gray hair in a severe bun, face twisted like she just stepped in something nasty. She was furiously taking photos and video of my backyard barbecue. I gave her a friendly wave, thinking maybe she was lost or needed help. Big mistake. Her scowl deepened, and she ducked back into the bushes. About 10 minutes later, sirens. I thought maybe an accident, but then 2 police cruisers pulled into my driveway, lights flashing like I was some criminal. I was standing there, barbecue tongs in hand, as officers Miller and Jones approached. Miller, young and tired-eyed; Jones, older and already shaking his head. They said they got a call about a fire and possible arson, chemical weapons. I just pointed to the grill. Officers, I'm making ribs, been marinating since yesterday. You're welcome to look. Jones sighed and asked if the caller happened to be the HOA president. Yep, Vivian Hayes. She'd been calling on everyone for everything: loud fishing, criminal frog conspiracies, because frogs croaked too loudly. Suddenly Vivian burst out of the bushes, arms flailing, shrieking about terrorism, smoke assaulting the neighborhood. He's burning down our beautiful community, she yelled, notebook flapping, phone recording every moment. Miller tried to calm her. Sir, cooking on private property isn't illegal. But she wouldn't hear it, rattling off a dozen supposed HOA violations about unauthorized smoke, unlicensed meat prep, wildlife nuisances, and not using an approved grill cover. I couldn't help myself. There's an HOA-approved grill cover? I asked. Oh, that lit her up. She started lecturing me about 12 years as HOA president, knowing every rule, every amendment. Jones stepped between us, warning her to stop calling 911 on non-emergencies. BB-cheating isn't a crime. Officers left, shaking their heads, and I thought, well, that's the end of it. Crazy neighbor, false report, cops leave, life goes on. But then I heard a buzzing, faint at first, then louder. A drone hovered above my yard, camera pointed right at me. Vivian was controlling it, grinning like she was on a mission. The drone swooped down, and I swatted at it with one hand, beer can in the other, spraying beer all over. Miraculously, the spray hit the drone. It spun out of control, crashed through my cabin roof, and disappeared inside. Vivian screamed from across the yard, calling it destruction of HOA property, assault on an official instrument. But I was running inside to check the damage. The drone smashed a 2-foot hole in the old roof, and inside, tangled in insulation, was a dusty metal box stamped Property Documents 1952. My hands trembled pulling it out. Grandpa's words echoed, "Keep your documents, David. You never know when you'll need to prove what's yours." Back inside, I opened the box on my kitchen table. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were original deeds and maps. The deed clearly showed my grandfather's land, including the lake, was private property exempt from any HOA. The survey map bore his signature and exact boundaries. Then a handwritten note, "David, if anyone tries to take our land or tell you what you can do on it, this is your shield. The lake is ours. No association has claim." I sat back stunned. If this was true, what had the HOA been doing? And why hide these documents for 70 years? The next morning, my property was plastered with bright orange violation notices, 30 at least, taped everywhere, even on leftover ribs. Each cited bogus HOA violations in Vivian's cramped handwriting: improper smoke disposal, unauthorized gatherings, failure to maintain aesthetics during cooking. Then a skinny kid in a security uniform showed up, Kevin Hayes, her nephew, taking photos for the HOA. Before I could ask more, 2 drones appeared. One had a cinema-grade camera, the other a spotlight and speaker blasting a booming warning. "You are being documented for multiple HOA infractions." That's when Bill Wilson entered the scene. Picture this: 70 years old, standing at the property line in boxer shorts and combat boots, armed with a slingshot. He launched a rock that clipped the cinema drone, sending it crashing into the lake. "Not in my yard, you mechanical buzzard," he shouted. The speaker drone targeted him, but Bill shot another rock that made it retreat. Bill was a legend, a rebel who'd fought Vivian before. He told me she fined him $5,000 for having chickens, claiming they threatened neighborhood aesthetics. We went to his cabin that night. His place was the opposite of mine: quirky, full of character, with gnome armies and signs saying trespassers will be composted. Bill showed me a USB drive with 10 years of HOA financial records he'd secretly saved. The spreadsheet showed $500 monthly lake maintenance fees collected from 20 households. That's $10,000 a month, over $1 million in 10 years. But expenses? Almost nothing. A few $100s here and there. The homeowner authorization forms were all forgeries, and the money was deposited into an account ending with 666. Bill tried raising concerns but was shut down and threatened with lawsuits. The lake wasn't even HOA property, it was private. She collected over $1 million illegally. I spent days preparing for the HOA meeting, backing up Grandpa's documents and Bill's data. The meeting was virtual, and Vivian showed up lawyered up, demanding pledges to the HOA charter, calling me disruptive. I shared my screen with the original deed and financials. Her face turned purple as residents realized they'd been paying for a lake that wasn't even theirs for years. Voices erupted, stories of families crushed by fines, retirees scraping by, people forced to pay fees even during job losses. Then, Vivian's own son Alex Hayes appeared, representing homeowners as legal counsel, exposing his mother's fraud. Bank statements showed $1.2 million HOA funds funneled into her personal accounts, spent on vacations, shopping, even cosmetic surgery, and a Mercedes lease. Vivian broke down, confessing it was about control, her kingdom, her only place to wield power after family fractures. The neighborhood exploded with relief and anger. Alex resigned from representing her, promising to cooperate with law enforcement. The FBI raided Vivian's house early the next morning, confiscating files and computers. Years of HOA harassment, surveillance, and blackmail were uncovered: medical records, personal secrets, enough to charge racketeering. $0.2 million stolen over 12 years from middle-class families. The HOA was dissolved, fines canceled, funds returned. Tears flowed as families received restitution, retirees finally able to retire, parents relieved, kids safe from upheaval. The new HOA board elected Bill Wilson president, who rewrote the rules in a single page: no harassment over legal activities, full financial transparency, and community barbecues encouraged. Chickens? Allowed. We held a victory barbecue 3 weeks later, the smell of brisket and ribs filling the air. No calls to 911 this time. Even Alex Hayes showed up, awkward but welcomed. Bill announced he bought Vivian's house to turn it into a community center, the Justice Barbecue House, a symbol of reclaiming power and healing. That night, alone in my cabin, I opened a letter from Vivian. She wrote about losing her kingdom, recognizing the HOA was her cage, and vowed to make amends by donating proceeds from her Etsy shop selling former HOA president merch. She thanked me for ending her reign. I raised my beer to the lake, thinking of Grandpa's words, always keep your documents. Justice, it turns out, tastes like perfectly smoked ribs. Karma has a funny way of serving its own BBQ.so. Now I ask you, when someone abuses power under the guise of community, what's the line between order and tyranny? And how far would you go to protect what's rightfully yours?